Welcome to the Weekly Juice Podcast, where we discuss all things real estate, personal finance, investing, entrepreneurship, and the many ways to achieve financial independence. We interview accomplished investors and entrepreneurs with the goal that their stories inspire you to take control of your financial future. Here to get your creative juices flowing, while also documenting their own personal investing journeys, are your hosts, Corey Jacobson and Ryan Bevilacqua.
Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. As always, it's your boys Ryan and Corey here with another episode. Today we interviewed Peter Taunton. He founded one of the largest wellness brands in the world with over 6,000 franchise and licenses across 3 brands in 28 countries, Lyft brands. Peter is most well known for franchising Snap Fitness. So I'm sure you've all seen this across the States and it's in multiple countries too. But basically he took a lifestyle wellness. It's a gym concept, but basically has them run 24/7, and there's only like one person that works in the gym. He kind of goes
scaled it down to a smaller operation, smaller footprint. He talked about in the episode, but then also like the amount of locations. He's got a bunch.
Yeah, and it's really cool to hear the inception story of this. It really started out where back when he was young, he was a racquetball player, sponsored, and he worked for a gym in Minnesota, and they ended up asking him to kind of like help revitalize the gym, and he ended up doing so, and then learning the skills he did there, he took it to one of the people that worked for that gym. I think went over to take over another gym and needed some assistance. So long story short, he scaled it down from a bunch of pools and extra, I guess, racquetball courts and
just like basketball courts, probably like a bigger, like a Lifetime Fitness is just a different
square footage
model.
Yeah. Think about it. Like he kept saying footprint. Yep. But basically scaled down the model, smaller until you finally got a small Snap Fitness, right? Where people could just go into, once you became a member anywhere, and you could go to any Snap Fitness across the States. But it's so interesting. I have one in my little hometown back, small town. And I was like, I saw it before and I was like, I wonder if anybody uses that. Cause there was a big gym in town too. And funny enough,
we don't have them here in Philly. I haven't seen one in Philly, but in the Northeast where you're from, they have them.
Yep.
Yeah.
They definitely have them in the Northeast. And that's probably why we got connected up there.
Peter has a story about, when he realizes like he made it, he was like on the golf course, talks about getting a $47 million wire transfer into his account and how he just his life completely changed. But, Peter is really, really good, like a really good business consultant. So he consults for a bunch of businesses now. He built it off of Snap Fitness. He does a acai bowl brand. So one of the things that he's done is just figure out how to take a business that's failing and then bring it to profit. He took the original business was that he did before Snap was a gym that was losing $200,000, I believe, and then he brought it to making $250,000. So, this guy has seen, he's 61, right?
Yeah.
So he's seen all different market cycles, ups and downs. And the thing that I find most interesting is a lot of people that we talk to that are really successful come from like just humble beginning backgrounds. One of 7. You said he grew up pretty poor. It's fascinating to me, like how you talk to somebody who went from that level to, he's worth over $100 million, maybe $200 million. It's like, it's wild.
What I like that we went to in this episode was a lot of, it was tactful, but it was really talked about, and I know we kind of use this as like an overarching term, but the mindset of it, we talked about how he felt in certain situations, how he mitigated risk, and how he just attacked his days. And it's just so interesting to me. We to come across a guy that's made $47 million multiple times, but what he did the next day and like how he started planning out his life and like what he did to help other people. And it's just so interesting because I think we've always thought about this, or at least Corey and I have. It's like, okay, like how do you know when you made it? And like, am I going to continue to strive for it? And Peter mentioned, he's like, listen, I just have this engine that keeps going. I like building businesses. It's what I'm good at. And I have a purpose there. And I know I can help drive the world further ahead with this. So I'm going to continue to do that. And, usually it's funny. I always think that when people make it to a certain point, or I always used to think this, they'd be hitting the beaches and they're just not doing anything. They don't
never.
They like the money.
Name one person that
means less to them.
It's weird. I name one person that has made it, that has come on the show and said that they chill.
0.
Nobody. So Peter's another one of those guys. He's really, really fun interview, and he talks about, he is an open book. So it was great to get to know him. And without further ado, let's bring him in.
Let's do it. When you have investment properties and tenants, you need a good system in place for collecting rent to make it easy as possible. And RentRedi can help you with everything. When you sign up for RentRedi, you can start adding your properties, inviting tenants, and creating charges. You can even set up automatic rent reminders and create auto late fees as well. For tenants, they can pay via ACH, card, or even cash using RentRedi's web and mobile apps. They can also use an automatic payment setup and sign up for rent reporting so they get rewarded for paying rent on time. RentRedi saves you time and hassle by automating rent collection, and you can manage everything from one dashboard. For our Weekly Juice listeners, RentRedi's given us a special 50% off for any RentRedi plan using our code WeeklyJuice at rentredi.com. That's RentRedi.com using the code WeeklyJuice. That's WeeklyJuice to save 50% off any RentRedi plan. Peter, officially welcome to the Weekly Juice podcast. Corey and I are so excited to have you on the show. As we mentioned pre-recording, we have followed you for a while now, and your background is very, very robust in the business world, and we're just so excited to have you on the show to kind of pick your brain a little bit and share your story with our listeners. So thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, I look forward to it. I think this is my first interview with you guys, and as I said before, nothing's off the table, so the floor is yours. Let her rip.
I love it. I think we're going to we'll get candid and talk about some of the trials and tribulations of an entrepreneur, making a decent chunk of change in your life and how to manage your life, which, maybe we'll ask some questions that not many people have, and just to get a peek behind the curtain later as we dive into the episode. But what I want to start with, if you're comfortable, is just like take us back down memory lane, like when you first started. And I personally know the story, but I'd like you to share for the listeners, like when you started Snap, like how did that journey begin and like your life into entrepreneurship in general?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Ryan. And I love to share my early on story, and I'll give you kind of a 20,000 foot view because it gives context to where it started. And look, make no mistake about it, I am living proof that the American dream is alive and well. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. I went to school in a 2-room schoolhouse, and I had an opportunity. My first break came when I was 22 years old to turn around a failing health club. And it was in my little hometown. And the owners, there was 5 owners at the time, they said, "Hey, Peter, if you can turn this business around, we'll give you a chance to buy us out with the profits of the business." Now, I'm 22. I had quit college. I had no plan B. I was all in. And look, it worked out. Now, it took me 8 years to turn that club from losing $200,000 a year to making about $250,000. So that's a pretty big swing in a little town. But in 8 years, I had enough equity. I bought the partners out of the business. Now I owned it free and clear. Now, I didn't know that was going to be my springboard to go on and build one of the largest wellness brands in the world. But that's where I started. That was my break. I took that business and leveraged it into additional clubs. And then about 25 years ago, started Snap Fitness, which really came out of doing a favor for a previous employee of mine, who when I sold a business, he went with the business. He was the manager, and he didn't like who I'd sold the business to. And he approached me 6 months after I'd sold the business. He said, "Look, I don't like who you sold it to. Would you build me a health club and let me run it for you?" Okay. And that was the flash of me thinking about, what if I didn't have this big full service club? Because my clubs were indoor pools, racquetball, aerobic, all these full service clubs. And I felt indebted to him because the guy had worked for me for 12 years. And I said, "Look, I'm going to start pulling things out." So imagine, you guys, if you had a puzzle and the puzzle's in front of you and you start taking pieces and throwing them over your shoulder. Like, for instance, one of the pieces of the puzzle is an indoor pool. You pick it up and you say, "That's really expensive. Not a lot of people use it." You toss it over your shoulder. So this club went from 40,000 square feet down to probably 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. Instead of 60 employees, I had 1 or 2. That was now, at the time, I didn't know it was going to be Snap Fitness. I was just doing this as a favor to this guy that I felt indebted to. Well, I built a club, and that club sold enough memberships. It was a small footprint. And it just had cardio, strength equipment, and selectorized equipment. So it was a very streamlined model. It was open 24 hours a day. You belong to one, you belong to them all. But keep in mind, there was only one. Okay? So anyway, I opened it up. I sold enough memberships in 90 days to cash flow it for the year. Now think about that. This thing was streamlined. It was really, the unit level economics was tight. And I told them after about 3-4 months, I said, hey, look, I'm going to build you another one. Okay. Because it was just kicking butt. I built another one in a mid-size market. The first one was in an urban market. The second one, I put it in a mid-size market. It behaved the exact same way. It just rocked. Then I still was not thinking franchising. Then I told them I'm going to build a third one. And I put it in a little town of 3,500 people. Okay. And I said, if this thing works here, I know I've got a tiger by the tail. Look, the rest is history. I put it in that little town. The unit level economics worked. I sold enough memberships in 90 days of cash flow for the year. And from there, I franchised it with zero franchise experience and just use a lot of common sense and street smart. Keep in mind, I quit college. So I always say, the A students work for the C students. That was me. Okay. So yeah, it worked out. And I went on to build one of the largest wellness brands with thousands of clubs around the world.
So thank you for sharing that backstory. I think this is awesome. I'm curious, has it always been health and fitness for you? Like, was that something that you thought of when you were a kid, a teenager? Is that because, and the reason why I asked the question is because just because somebody likes basketball, for example, me, I grew up loving basketball. I knew I wasn't going to play professionally. But that doesn't mean that I would want to go into broadcasting or go into being a GM. I love coaching. I happen to be a coach. So that's the thing that I gravitated towards. But sometimes business people say not to go into the business that you love. Some people do. So I'm curious, was it like did you always love health and fitness, or was it you kind of fell into it?
My vehicle into it, I played professional racquetball for 12 years. So did my identical twin. So I'm the youngest of 7 kids. I have an identical twin brother. So we were sponsored players for Echelon, which is at the time the largest racket manufacturer in the world. And we were sponsored players for them. We traveled around the country. That was the window for me. I was always traveling. I was meeting great people. So I fell in love with the environment. I fell in love. It was so positive, athletics, positive. So I said, look, this is something I can do. I didn't know that my first opportunity was going to come into space. It just happened to. So, I'm a firm believer in divine intervention. I mean, I sit back here today and I think about, how did this kid who grew up in a 2-room schoolhouse, how did that kid end up to where I am today with, in my life, I've had private jets, yachts, multiple homes. How did that happen? So for me, when I reflect back, I think about what a blessed life I've had and I've had the opportunity to work with some great people. So I don't take any of this for granted. I love doing interviews like this with people. And, I want your audience to understand, hey, look, I'm living proof that it can happen. If it can happen to me, it can happen to you. Believe it.
One of the questions that I have, I want to get back into the meat and bones of it, but something you said struck a chord with me, and you mentioned having all of the luxuries of life. I struggle sometimes with trying to figure out when will be enough and where I actually want to get to, and if I'll actually be happy when I get there. And we like to ask entrepreneurs who are several steps ahead of us, was there a point that you were like, I made it, or I have the level of happiness I need? Or are you always searching for something more? Because you could stop working today, I assume, and that might not be in your DNA. So I'm curious, how do you balance all of that? Like the weight of like, I want to push for more because it's who I am, but also like, do I have enough to be happy?
Yeah, I think it's however you're wired. And for me, I mean, that's a question that I ask myself a lot. And I've always come at this from a place of gratitude, but I also believe that taking money and putting it aside, you got to wake up every day with purpose. It doesn't matter how much money you have, little or a lot. You got to get up every day with fire in your belly. Now, what lights that fire? It's different for everyone. So, but for me, it always been creating business and making money. Look, as embarrassing as that is for me to say, the reality of it is, until I got to be about 50 years old, think about that, 50, I got up every day wanting to make money. I don't know if it's because I grew up with very little, that you felt like, my God, there's never enough. I had this hunger to succeed and always looking over my shoulder. Even today, think about this. You want to hear something that's completely jacked up. I built a $200+ million company and I walk around like I'm broke. Okay? Get your head around that. All right?
How do you figure? What do you mean when you walk around?
I always walk around with this level of paranoia. Okay? Like the other shoe is going to fall. How did this happen to me? Almost a level of guilt. But I've taken that to a positive place. I get up every day. I mean, my fiance, Carolina, she says, "You're the hardest working guy I know." My friends say, "Peter's the hardest working retired guy you'll ever meet." Yeah. All right? And there's some truth to it. Now, number one, I like getting up every day with purpose. And that purpose happens to be driving companies. And when I stepped away from Lyft Brands, one of the first opportunities I had once it became public was to be a Forbes Masterclass instructor. So I have the opportunity to really work with some people and help them find their way, help them pivot later in life, help them find the way for some people that are lost through this whole financial, obstacle course that's out there.
Yep.
And so it's all good, right?
So with that, we can get into what you sold the businesses for and can talk dollars too. And I know it's a large amount and it kind of parlays off of Corey's question, but it's like, at this point, you seem to find your purpose, right? You have the passion to wake up and do what you do, but what do you look forward to? Like, for example, I think some people always have something they're chasing, right? Like the Lamborghini or the car with the house with the white picket fence, or multiple vacations, or to be able to control their schedule so they can do what they want when they want. And the reason I'm asking this is like, there's some day that you woke up and you were like, whoa, I have the flexibility to do whatever I want when I want to do it. But you continue to go back to these businesses and continue to grind. And like, so I guess my question is like, there's never, it's that saying where ever the mountain peak, you get to the top, there's always another one, right?
The false summit.
The false summit, right? So for me, I'm like, do you look forward to something in particular? Like, what is going to make you feel 100% fulfilled? Or do you just enjoy the hustle? Is that really what it is? Like, that's your fire?
Yeah. You know what? I think balance is important because the most valuable asset that I have, all of us have, is time. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. You can't buy more and you don't get less. So use them wisely, right? So for me, I make sure that I have balance in my life and I try to do the best I can with that. I mean, what does that balance look like for me? Well, part of it is I love growing companies. That makes me feel good. That makes me feel valuable. That makes me feel accountable. All right. So I love building companies. I try to make time for my kids, my family, my faith, my girlfriend, my fiance, and then for myself. Okay. So that's my little juggling act right there. And when I get too much water in one bucket and the other one's kind of tilt, when they get off tilt, then I got to take a step back and reflect a little bit about what I'm doing. So at 61 years old, I've learned balance. I've learned to keep things in check because you're right. I have the ability to get up and do anything I want. When I'm involved with companies, I'm making my schedule. Nobody's making my schedule for me. And so those are all important things to me. And I think even in the journey on the way up, a question that I get asked often is, Peter, what's your biggest regret? And it's as silly as it sounds. I tell people, I wish I would have danced more. And what I mean by that is through my journey, through the grind, I mean, the point of, am I going to make it or not? All right. That pivotal moment that for many people is years. All right. And during that time, I was so focused and so driven that, there were things that fell along the wayside. There were some beautiful friendships that I had through high school and college that just drifted away. And I take ownership in that look, you know what? I was too busy. I was too focused on chasing the dollar rather than really formulating some deep friendships and showing gratitude for some of the deep friendships that I had over the years. So that's what I mean by saying I wish I had danced more. Look, you don't get a do-over, okay? So you got to live with it. You got to get right with it, and I'm okay with it. If somebody said, hey, look, you get a do-over, that would be my do-over. But I can also tell you this, had I not been as driven as I was, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. And I can tell you this, my kids and my legacy, whatever that financial legacy looks like, however many hundreds or thousands of lives that I impact through my life, it's a result of that discipline and accountability that I held myself to for all those years.
I really like that. And I think it's so important to talk about. I think about that often too. It's like my wife tells me all the time, she's like, you got to get better with your friendships. And I'm like, I've seen I don't know what it's called, but it's basically like go dark for 6 months and then wake up and, you'll be in a different place. But like, I don't mean to go dark, but I noticed that where the entrepreneurs like us are like type A people, you do get so laser focused and you don't even realize time flies. And when's the last time you checked up on so-and-so? And then like, honestly, like a year could go by. And, I've seen some of my friends from college and I see maybe every 6 months. That's a long time to wait to see someone. Like, are you checking in with them in between? And you have to, there's give and take in relationships, right? It's not a one-way street. And once you make it and you have all the money and the freedom to do what you want, who are you going to spend it with? And so I think that's just an important thing to highlight. And, I appreciate you mentioning it because not people will. They'll just be like, yeah, well, I made it and I'm taking care of my pack. But like those kind of are your pack too. And there's lots of nuances in there.
And you know what, Ryan? It's, owning it. Here's the good news for me. First of all, my circle of friends is pretty small. Okay, look. And it comes from being a little bit guarded. All right. I've got a small circle of friends that are really in my inner circle. And then I've got my second ring of friends is a pretty broad ring. Okay. And they probably think they're in my inner circle, but really they're in my second tier. Okay. And then the third tier is ridiculous, right? But my inner circle, they know, I'm a pretty average friend. Okay. Self-professed. I suck at being a friend. They know I'm busy, and that's no excuse. We're all busy. And I tell them, I suck, like literally people say, Peter, you're intense. I think I'm one of the least intense people around, but if people tell you you're intense, I guess you're intense, right?
Yeah, I've heard that too about myself.
And I'll get on a phone call. I'll get right to it. It's like, hey, it's not like, hey, brother, how you doing? I'll jump right to fifth gear, okay? And then sometimes I got to stop and I got to go, hey, wait a minute. Holy shit. Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
How's the family? I got to check myself.
Yeah, 100%.
I've gotten that too. And you're intimidating. I didn't want to talk to you. And they're like, me? I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? I'm like, goofball. But it's the way we hold ourselves. And you're just a laser. And just then don't get us talking about something we're passionate about or it's over. And so there's a couple of things. We're all cut similar cloths here. I want to talk about a couple of things, and specifically, I want to talk about risk and like how you've adjusted that across your journey. But while we're on the topic of your circle, right? How have you adjusted to becoming very wealthy and then going out to dinner or going on trips or being around people that maybe aren't quite as fortunate or where you are in life and navigating maybe some of the conversations? And the reason I ask that is like, sometimes maybe you feel like they can't relate to you and you don't want to offend anyone. And there's certain situations where I know there's tiers of people, but not everyone in your inner circle may be a millionaire or whatever that is. I think you know what I'm getting at there. How are you navigating relationships as you climb, I guess, social status and success? Look,
it's, first of all, coming from a small Midwestern town, and I've always said, look, don't, and when I do a lot of these speaking gigs, I tell people, look, in your journey, I hope that everyone has an opportunity to experience any level of success, whatever that success looks like through your lens. But I said, for darn sure, don't let it ruin you along the way in the journey. Okay. And for me, one of the things that I'm thankful for is I've remained grounded. Okay. Look, I've had an unbelievable life, and I want for nothing. When it comes, I've got Ferraris, McLarens, jets, yachts, multiple homes. I want for nothing. But you'd never know that. If you ever met me in a coffee shop, I'm a blue jean t-shirt guy. Okay, I'll rock a baseball cap on backwards. Doesn't matter. I don't need to flex. And I'm glad that I came out the other side like that. And when I speak to people that have acquired real wealth, I tell them, hey, look, make sure that in that journey, you're pulling people in the backdraft of your success along the way. Give them opportunity, open doors for them, because look, when you acquire real wealth, real money, you can open doors for people. And don't forget about that. That's not all about you. Show some gratitude, some humility, and it pays dividends. So, when you get to a place, I guess when you get to a place in your life where you feel like you've checked the financial box, and look, it doesn't matter how much you have. If you're going to spend money like a drunken sailor, you're never going to have enough. And that's not how I was raised. But now I look at it and I say, these are some things that I want to do. I want to leave a legacy. What does that look like? I want to do good. I want to make a difference. I hope someday my great, great, great grandkids can look up at what I accomplished in my life and how I changed the life, the legacy for my family. That's what I hope. And doing good, helping people along the way.
Very cool. I want to talk about some of the things that helped you get to the position that you're at. You talk often about discipline, accountability, progress, how they all kind of mesh. I'm curious if you can maybe elaborate on how you use those three terms in your life to kind of propel you and maybe what does a day in the life look like? Maybe not now, but while you were building.
Look, discipline and accountability are three words that I love is discipline, accountability, and perspective. And I tell you what, without discipline, you don't hold yourself accountable to any standard. And I always say, look, anyone can be an all-star if you set the bar at your ankles. So you got to look at yourself and understand what you're capable of. And if you're looking for other people to tell you what you're capable of, you're lost already. All right. You got to look in the mirror. You got to look that guy in the eye and say, look, you freaking got this. Okay. You got to believe in yourself first and foremost. So, and then set your goals and then have a plan. Set that plan of what it is you want to do. I get people all the time. Hey, Peter, I want to be a millionaire. Okay. What are you making now? And look, it's somebody that's making $50,000 a year. They want to be a millionaire. And I say, look, I'm going to give you a roadmap here, but you're not going to go from 50,000 to $1 million. So let's get working a little bit. Let's start putting some money along the side and get that working for us. I carve out a path. I tell you what, guys, there's some truth. The more money you have, the easier it is to make money. There is truth behind that. And anyone that tells you otherwise is full of it. All right. Because with free cash flow comes opportunity. So when I was younger, sacrifice was no problem for me. I would sacrifice the luxuries. I would sacrifice going out with my buddies on a Friday night. If I had work to do, my work came first, okay? Because I had no plan B. So discipline, accountability, sacrifice, perspective. Perspective, why is that? Because it takes longer than you think, all right? If somebody had told me, think about it. When I started, okay, came from nothing. For 20 years, I ran these clubs. I built some clubs. And when I sold it all, I was 40 years old and I had $3 million in the bank. Think about that. $3 million in the bank. Now, coming from somebody with no money, I thought I was rich. Okay, I thought I've done it. All right. But from 40 to 45, I went from 3 million to 100 million. Okay. So imagine that ride. Okay. And then beyond that point, building it from 100 to $200+ million company. Look, it can happen just that fast with the right idea. So it's, for me, it's perspective and drive and good habits, discipline. Good quality habits of every day. The same grind that you guys have every day, the same grind, the routine that you do that you're on point, and these are good measures heading in the right direction. That's what's going to serve you well long term. Okay. Totally. You're consistent.
Yep.
It's key.
That's great. And I've heard this from a fitness perspective, and you would know about this, but like consistency over intensity. I've heard that. Like just showing up every day is better than trying to be like, oh, I'm going to make all this, I'm going to work 2 days a month and work for 24 hours each of those 2 days, right? That's not going to work consistently each day. I know that you're driven, right? That's the entrepreneur, the head of the snake, the person who's going after it. That makes sense. But in order to build what you've built, you have to hire employees. You have to have people along the road with you that are willing to dive in, that maybe end up becoming entrepreneurs themselves, right? So there's a balance there. I'm curious, what recommendations do you have for people that are trying to bring on employees, and like, how do you find the right ones? And what were the traits that the ones that you hired, what did they have that helped you?
You can tell when you bring someone on and they've got it, meaning they're not looking at the clock. They're not 9 to 5. They give it what it takes. And what they don't know, they figure out. And I always say they're coachable. Okay. Human capital will make or break a company. And there's some truth in that. So for me, one of the many blessings that I'd had over my 40-year business career is literally I've had a front row seat to watching people just evolve and watching employees buy their first home, get married, start a family, buy their first brand new car. I mean, those are remember you guys when you bought your first brand new car, that new smell, that new leather smell. I mean, right? You get to vicariously experience all those things in that journey, and those are the parts of it that I love. And I tell you what, I think part of my success is the people that I brought with me, the people that were department heads. I believed in them, and they knew that I believed in them. And I tell you what, there's times when I've had meetings, and I share this story often. It's kind of funny, but when I'm building a brand, I have the department heads. I have a recap meeting, and if we blew it in something, if we just completely whiffed, I'll go into this board meeting with all the department heads, and there's about 12 of them in there, and I'll say, look, here's the reality, and I'll explain how we missed. And then I'll say, look, here's the reality. We're just not that good, okay? And I tell you what, me telling my staff, we're just not that good, I guess. And then I'll grab my coffee cup and I'll leave. I'll go to the break room. I'll get a cup of coffee, right? And I close that door behind me. I tell you what, the freaking fur is flying in that room because every one of those people, they're natural born leaders. And they will say, look, they will find a way. They will cut through the mess. I'll come in 10, 15 minutes later. The room might be 5 degrees hotter. But I tell you what, then we get down to business, okay, on how we can do better. We, work smarter, work better yield. I mean, and that's the key. When you have people that really care, that you care, and when you tell them, hey, look, and there's time I pulled employees aside away from the group and said, hey, look, you're so much better than what you're giving me. You have no idea how freaking talented you are. But you have these moments where you just completely suck. So what's going on? Is it you have something going on at home? Talk to me. Okay? Are you upside down financially? What is it? Because what you've been giving me the last 20, 30 days is not going to cut it. Right? And I tell you what, they appreciate that. And they'll come back to me. It might be a year, 2 years later and say, hey man, that little pep talk, as tough a love as it was, it changed me. And that's what being an entrepreneur is. That's what being a leader is. All right. And I think it's too easy for people to wash people out, with the bathwater. I think you got to lean in and give people a shot and mentor. That's what mentoring is.
So I love that. Going through this too, and I feel like we're like midway through the stage here of hiring, but can you take us back to when you first started out? Did you take us through the hiring process, and not like so in the weeds, but for us, there's you hear the term solopreneur, right? A lot of people like us too, like run our own company. At some point, you're going to have to bring in employees. We've been kind of coached to, depending on the line of work, bring in a virtual assistant, right? Someone that's really cheap, but they can do like the menial tasks to free some time off your hands so you can go things that move the business forward. But then at some point, you're gonna have to hire someone for $50,000 a year. Plus, can you talk to us about I know you took some of these wellness clubs off the ground before you started the franchises. How did you find the right people to put in the right spots and, navigate the books to find what you could spend and kind of plug the holes that were leaking, I guess, at that point?
Every brand, here's an interesting point. Every brand I've ever started, I did it with grassroots. I've never gone out and raised capital. I always get suspect or suspicious of people saying, hey, Peter, would you like to invest in this company? And let's say that they're going to raise $500,000 or $1 million. I ask them, what are you going to do with the money? And they say, well, we're going to start hiring staff and we're going to start taking salaries. I'm the first one out. I'm out on that. Okay. I can tell you this, when you're starting a company, the first person you hire has got to be a utility infielder. Okay. He's got to be somebody that you got to be able to look before you even think about hiring. You got to make your punch list of here's the 10 material things that we're doing. Here's what moves the needle. And then once you put those in chronological order, then put a time by each one. How much of your week are you allocating towards these 10 big movers? All right. And from there, you hire your talent and you make decisions. Look, early on in a company, don't ever give anyone else the ball. Okay. It's bases loaded, ninth inning, 2 outs, and you're the pitcher. You want the friggin' ball. Okay. So be that guy. So what you're trying to do is say, look, I'm going to find someone that can do items 7 through 10, which is going to free up X amount of hours for a week for me, so I can leverage that time into these areas. All right. That's first and foremost. As you start getting cash flow, now you can start departmentalizing. You can bring on someone in marketing. Okay. I think one of the most worthless hires to make early on is an accountant, believe it or not. Okay. Yes. Look, you can run most companies when they're starting. You can do it with QuickBooks. If you need somebody to help you manage your purse, you're not the right person. Okay. You manage inflows and outflows. How much cash is coming in? How much is going out? I mean, that's basic math. Okay. So, well, I always say, accountant is one of the last people I hire. Honestly, it's marketing, because marketing drives sales. And it's not the guy that's got 15-year tenure in marketing who's going to come in and want 80 to 100 grand. I don't want that guy. I want the person who's got 2 years under their belt. They worked with a marketing company. They majored in marketing. Hey, look, they're young, they're fiery. They understand what's cutting edge in social media, where you need to be. They've got more time than they have money, and they're willing to give you the effort. Okay. So that's how you start. And then crawl, walk, run. I tell you what, every one of my companies, when they get to a point where they're making money, then I take an allocation. I take a certain percentage of my company and I make allocation to my employees. So when I sell the company, they're going to get paid. Here's my caveat. If you're not employed by me when I sell the company, you're not getting paid. Okay? You're not paid. So what does that do? It creates loyalty. You're going to think long and hard. If you've got 100,000 shares of this company, and if when you exit that stock is worth $1 or $2 a share, you're going to think twice about jumping ship. And today's day and age, that's real. All right. People today, this generation out there, they jump ship without even having a plan B. They just pull the chute. Right. I mean, so I look at the market that I'm dealing with. I look at, how do I want to grow this company? How long will it take? I look at everything, but that's how I do it.
Great. That's great advice. You mentioned the workforce today, the younger generation, and then that brings me kind of to the current state of the market. I'm curious what your thoughts are on like how you're navigating the waters now. I find it funny when people say uncertainty, because I mean, I've only been in business for 6-7 years, but it's always been uncertain to me. I never know what's going to happen. So I feel like uncertainty that's the certainty to me. So I'm curious, what do you see with the current state of the market, and like, and how do you proceed forward with that globally as you try to expand business, grow your business, or pivot? It's kind of a long question there.
No, I get it. I got it. Hey, look, here's the reality. When people say, here's my 5-year window, I go, wait a minute, forget your 5-year window. Let's reel that into 3 years. Okay. And then we're going to break this thing down to, here's our 1 and 2 year plan, because things evolve that fast. Okay. I mean, look at just what's happened just since the last election. Interest rates at an all-time high. Okay. Inflation as high as it's been since the early 80s. All right. So it's affected consumer spending. The consumer today is holding onto their discretionary spending dollars, and everyone's feeling it. I mean, if you're McDonald's, you're not feeling it. If you're a fast food or healthy fast casual, as long as your price point is sub $10, you're not feeling it as much. But high-end restaurants, they're feeling it. So you got to evolve and pivot accordingly. One of my brands right now is an acai bowl concept, nautical bowls. Hey, look, when we started this concept 2.5-3 years ago, stores were doing $600,000+ a year in annual revenue. Today, the average store is doing $400,000. Do the math on it, okay? So you got to build a different model. What have I done? I call it Nautical Bowls 2.0. It's a smaller footprint. And you're seeing other chains doing this. Smaller footprint. Why? A higher portion of their revenue is coming through third-party delivery, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub. You don't need the seating. People, they come in, they grab it, and they go. All right, people are on the fly. So what have I done? I've made a smaller footprint, less seating. It costs 30% less to build out the store. The monthly operating costs are 30% less. I've created a model where the unit level economics are going to work at $400,000 a year of revenue. So, and
I love that.
You've got to be able to constantly be assessing of what's going on. When the economy turns around, those stores will be in a better position to succeed because they've got less overhead. Okay.
I find that interesting based on like being a consumer of acai bowls or you know, I don't eat fast food, but I eat like Chipotle and Sweet Green and stuff. So, but it's interesting that you say that because when you say smaller footprint, I can't remember the last time I sat in a Chipotle or a Sweet Green or a Honey Grow. These are just examples of places around here, or an acai. I can't remember. But if I'm going to dinner and the entrees are $20, $30, $40, $50, then I'm probably not getting pickup. I'm sitting, you have bigger space. So I've never thought of it like that. And when you said footprint, I was going to ask what you meant, but I realized you're talking about physical space. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And when you're spending $40, $50 an entree, you're looking for a guest experience. Okay. You're looking for a restaurant dining experience. All right. It's tricky, you know, in Miami, our cost of living here is one of the most expensive cities in the country, if not the most expensive. And that's nothing to brag about. I mean, we surpassed New York last year. I believe it. Inflation here is crazy. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. But that's the price of poker if you live in Miami.
So I want to kind of pivot a little bit here too, and I think about it's rare you speak to someone that has reached such a high level of success. And I think a question that many people would probably want to ask and don't ask is like, can you take us to the moment? I know Corey asked it earlier in the show, but like the moment where you felt like you made it, or maybe the day that you got that check or that direct deposit when you sold those shares of the company and you became $100 millionaire versus a three, you know, just a millionaire. And I say just lax, like, you know, like it's a small thing. It's not, but where your life was completely changed, right? And it took you to a different level. Where were you at? Do you remember like walking or where your headspace was at? And I have questions that parlay off this, but I just want to know, like for us, I was thinking like, when am I going to know I made it? And I wonder if you had one of those.
I'm afraid we're not.
Yeah, that's what we're afraid.
Yeah, you know what? I could tell you exactly where I was. I was walking down the first fairway at Spring Hill Country Club in Minneapolis, and literally walking down the first fairway, and my phone rings, and it's my attorney and my accountant. And they said, "Hey, Peter, the funds have been wired into your account." Okay. And I said, "Thanks, guys." And I hung up, and I went to my Wells Fargo app, and there sat $47 million. Okay. I mean, my eyes welled up, and, you know, my buddies knew that I had a big day, you know, that obviously, because I had spent the morning before that signing a bunch of documents. But my friends, I mean,
what'd you shoot that day, Peter? Had to be low.
No, you know what? I tell you what, I just said, you know, for me, it was a moment of emotion of just saying, oh, man, I freaking did it. The kid and the youngest of 7 went to school in a 2-room schoolhouse, quit college. I was, you know, you would have, if I was a stock, you would have shorted me as a kid, right? And I did it. I knew my life would never be the same. I sold 40% of my company at the time for $47 million. And then 5 years later, sold another 40% for about the same amount, right? So it was a game changer, right? It was,
yeah.
You know, it's
unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. You know, it's hard to get your head around it. That's real money, right?
It is. And I think so. I'm living here in the moment with you, right? I'm picturing on the course, right? You get the Wells Fargo deposit. Like, you go, at some point, you're going to go to bed that night, right? Maybe a little bit later than normal, I would imagine. You wake up, and let's just say you've had a day or two to let it settle, right? You open up the app again, because I know for us, we open our damn apps all the time. Hey, did this bank account go up? Did my stocks increase? But the money's still there. So take me to, is in your head twofold. One, what was something that you purchased for yourself that you just want, that you were maybe itching to always buy, and you knew you had the flexibility and the freedom to do so, and you were like, whoa, I can do this, and I'm not gonna feel it. And then part 2 of that is, so keep that one thing in your head for you. And then the second is, I'd like you, because I know you've had to have done this. You've talked about people in your backdraft that you've brought up to your level or helped out along the way. And maybe it's not buying something for them, like a house or a car, but like changing their life. For example, like $100,000, it's going to change someone's life drastically that doesn't have it. And $47 million, you're not going to feel it. So I'm wondering if you have one of those stories that you remember, like, and it's meant something to you. Like, I've changed someone's life. You don't have to give us a dollar amount, but like what you've done to bring them up to a place in their life that they might not have ever gotten to without your help.
I think, you know what? I think when you have that kind of money, you're looking at business opportunities of people that have an idea, and you become an equity partner with them in a business that they're running, and you're banking on them. I think many times you have to bet on the horse. And when you give them the seed money to get them into the business and then you exit the business, it is what it is. I've had many of those along the years that have been that. And keep in mind, since I sold the first time, it's been 17 years since I took the first 47. So it's been a long time, right? So I think being a pivotal part of helping other people realize their dream, that's very rewarding. Obviously, the philanthropy of giving back into different fundraisers and things like that. But I'll tell you something that's interesting, only for me, is when I'm going, my philanthropic endeavors, if you're a professional fundraising organization, you're going to get very little from me, to be honest with you. Okay, some groups out there today, they're professional fundraisers. They're big nonprofits. They raise millions and millions of millions. There's so much pork belly fat in that entity. That's not me, okay? I would much rather be involved in a grassroots, people that are volunteering their time, making a difference in their little corner of the world. That's where I want to be, okay? So it drives people crazy. Now, look, when I get invited to fundraisers, I know what I'm there for. Do you know what I mean? Okay, totally. It's not because, Peter's a great guy. Bullshit. But I know what I'm there for. I'm there to help and make a difference and make a donation. That's why when I go to fundraisers, look, there's many times I've got jeans and a t-shirt on. Look, it's not me snubbing a nose. I know what I'm there for. I'm not flexing. I don't need to do anything. I'm here because I want to be here. I believe in what you're doing. And if I can make a difference with you, I'll do it. You know what I mean?
Cool.
Yeah.
So, obviously you've been a serial entrepreneur for a long time now, and we've had a lot of conversations about the journey, but also the destination and what you've created and just being able to enjoy it. But for people that are listening who don't have $47 million in their bank account, which I would venture to say is everyone, what do you feel like is good advice for today's market, today's economy? Are there certain business types that you really like? Or are there certain, evidently, the acai bowl, that's one that you're already working on. But I'm curious, do you have any tangible, I like the way this is trending. I like the way, this type of business is moving in 2024. And maybe just to spark some ideas for people that are listening.
I think the first thing is you have to look at what's relevant in today's marketplace. Now, for me, the no-brainer, take Amazon as an example. But there's not many companies do it better, okay? And believe me, they print money. They've been printing money for a long time. But you wait, Amazon is going to get into the travel place. They're going to get into the car space. They're just beginning. Amazon will own the commerce world, I promise you, okay? So Amazon, can't go wrong with them. Apple, you know what? Great company, very innovative. They're not going away anytime soon. And then, what is it? NVIDIA, and the AI, look, no-brainer. Facebook, no-brainer. Google and Microsoft. Those would be my 6, okay? And honestly, if you just don't bet the farm, but if you took $100,000 and just bought equal shares of those 6 stocks that I just mentioned, you probably would have grown by 30% in the last year, all right?
Yep.
Here's the reality. And some people would say, well, Peter, I'm not going to buy Amazon and buy, 30 shares. It's only 30 shares. I tell them 30% is 30%. Do you know what I mean? And I tell you what, I've done it. Those 6 stocks, I have that in my little play portfolio, okay? My little Robinhood account that I tinker around with. The other one, I think, Bitcoin when it was down at $16,000. Look, It's upwards of 50,000 today. And, that's a good run. I don't own a ton of that, but I probably, but it's a good run. It's going up and to the right. If you believe that that's here to stay, then, so the punchline here, Corey, is, look, find things that you think are here to stay, okay? Not fads, not trends, but good companies that are fundamentally on point. And that's where you want to put your money. Now, if you like swinging for the fences, no problem. Then take 10% of your money for discretionary spend in the high flyers. And I tell you what, there's high flyers out there today that you can look at. It's going to be a longer hold. And if they make it, you might get a 10, 20x. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm a believer in that, but you've got to remember it can go the other way too. So that's the reality of it.
Cool. Last question for me. I'm curious about, now nobody has a what's a crystal ball anything here, but how do you feel like the inflation aspect has affected businesses the most? Are there certain things that you're seeing that maybe the businesses that you run are able to pivot or cut costs, or like how are you combating it, I guess I would say, and maybe even on the smaller level too with smaller businesses, because what is being reported as 8% or 6% or whatever it is, it seems from an average consumer that it's actually much higher. So I'm curious, is there anything that you can see in from a technical standpoint to help combat it or go against it?
That's what breaks my heart, Corey. Being in the franchise space, you think about Nautical Bulls, we launched it 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. We've awarded 192 territories. We probably have 80 franchisees. They got into this business when interest rates were relatively low, affordable. And now many of them are double A. They got SBA loans that are fluctuating interest rates. Many of them are 10+% interest rates, okay? So they can't raise their prices because you've got inflation hitting the consumer. So consumer is already holding back on their discretionary spend. So just thinking you're going to raise price is not the answer. Your cost of goods has went up, okay? A year ago, our cost of goods, believe it or not, was 45%. 45%. Today, it's 32%. It came down because we got creative in our buying. We're buying products from Brazil now, making bigger obligations to the supply chain, thus driving the price down.
I have a quick pivot as we wrap up the show. So, first of all, thanks for everything so far. This has been super insightful, and I love your business acumen and just kind of the wisdom over the years. So thanks for sharing it with us. I mentioned to you earlier in the show, we are heavily focused on real estate. We haven't touched on it yet in this episode. I'm curious, over your time as an entrepreneur, investor, et cetera, like, have you invested into a portfolio of real estate? What are your thoughts on that? And just maybe let us know, we talked about your whole, I guess, lane of franchises and businesses you built and sold, and it's been amazing. Has real estate woven into that in any aspect? And if so, can you explain how?
Yeah, it has. You know what? I don't have a lot of it now, but I used to have about 40 million of real estate holdings in apartment buildings and things like that. And I pivoted a little bit a few years ago, and I'm glad I did, because you know what? Interest rates are very high right now. So if you were if you got into real estate recently with the high interest rates, that's got to be a tough way to make those numbers work, because you got interest rates that are at an all-time high. And then you got the consumer price index. I mean, think about it this way. If you made $100,000 a year in 2022, today that same 100,000, you'd have to make 112,000 to have the same spending capacity. Okay, and if you don't think that has come home to roost with people and their spending habits on what they can afford, I mean, it's had a big play. So for me, I'm kind of in the hold pattern right now on real estate. I'm not a big buyer. I need things to settle out. Personally, I think if you've got some dry powder on the sidelines, I think there may be some opportunity coming up in the next couple of years where interest rates soften up, or people have got completely blindsided, they're over-levered, that you might have some buying opportunities where you can pick up some real estate from banks that have gone through foreclosure. It may be there. I think the the risk is worth the wait, personally, for me, okay? But real estate has always been pretty good, especially rental stuff. If you can get a partner who is pretty handy, where you can go in early on, a lot of your listeners out there, if you've got 50,000, okay, you've managed to squirrel 50,000 away. So go buy yourself, a small home, because you can cover the deposit, all right? Get a partner, though, who's handy. And that person is going to get their equity by sweat equity. They can lay carpet, they can paint, they've got some landscaping skills. Put some lipstick on this home that you bought. Put it in a rental pool, so start renting it. The rental surplus more than pays the debt on the home and kicks off some positive cash flow for you. So keep in mind, you've got 50,000 tied up in this home. It's spinning off 7 to 10,000 a year of free cash flow. You're paying down debt, you've got free cash flow, and your property value is going up. That's a great place for someone to start, okay? And pretty soon, think about it, you have one. Then the next year, you buy another one. You wake up 5 years later. Now you've got 5 rental properties spinning off 20 to 25,000 collectively, right? Now you've got a machine, okay? And people say, God, Peter, they get so bogged down. They want to go from 0 to 100. They don't know how to get in the game. I tell you what, get in the game. If you don't have a lot of money, if you can squirrel 50,000 away, get that guy who's handy, and he's going to bring value to you by painting, laying carpet. He's got some carpentry skills. He knows how to landscape. I'll tell you what, I'm a big fan of it. Start small and have a plan to grow.
Well, Peter, you spoke basically about what we did in the beginning too. So that's how we got our start, and we realized that when we were able to sell a property for 1.7 times what we bought it, and you even over a 4, 5, 6 year time frame, especially with inflation driving up housing prices, that stuff starts to add up, and then you're able to do syndications, and you're able to raise capital, and before you know it, you have something small that's turning into something medium-sized, and that's where we feel Ryan and I are. So thanks for describing our start. That's awesome.
I love it. Good for you guys.
Yeah, thank you, man. So this has been a pleasure. This is, to talk to somebody who's done what you've done is we get to talk to a lot of cool people, but you're at a level that we strive to be at. So thanks so much for sharing your story with us. If people want to learn more about you, they want to get in touch, maybe just follow you on social media, like what's the best way for people to network and learn more about your story?
Yeah, it's easy. You know what? Just go to my Instagram handle. That's the only thing I look at, by the way. So I don't take the time to look at LinkedIn or my Facebook. I go to Instagram because that's all I make time for. So just go to, it's Peter _Taunton, my last name, Taunton. Follow me there. And you know what? I look at it. If you message me, as long as you're not trying to sell me something, okay? If you message me, I'll answer you, okay? I will. It's me doing it. It's not a staff of mine. I've got people that manage my social media, but I make a point. Hey, look, if somebody's reaching out to me, that's part of what I look at as my philanthropy, is giving of my time, okay? So I will answer you. It is me, but just don't hound me. Don't try to sell me something. I'm not your guy.
Cool. Awesome. And thanks for that caveat, because you might have gotten that if you didn't say it. So
right.
We appreciate you, Peter. This has been awesome to get to know you, and hopefully we can stay in touch. So thanks for spending some time with us tonight.
My pleasure, guys. Hey, good luck to you, and congrats on your success on your real estate.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Weekly Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod, where we post daily tips and tricks and document our own journey towards financial freedom. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice.